shall we play a game?
We got Star Wars Unlimited. We got classic Star Wars games. We got old school D&D, independent RPGs, mini painting, Warhammer, of course, tons of other games. But first, we're gonna need some coffee here on Board Barista Productions.
I will warn you, I did not realize that ass was showing. It says sass and brass. So if anyone makes a comment, it's sass and brass. And here's a sassy cow over a bunch of brass.
Oh, yeah.
Let's call Sass and Brass, and she put on dog tags for me. Joel Stern's nicknamed us girls Sass and Brass.
Okay, that's actually a great part to say, hey, everybody, and welcome to Retro Reviews, a review show where we go through my copious amounts of role-playing books, magazines, and other paraphernalia one at a time. And to keep me from rambling, we have Tanya.
Sass and Brass.
Sass and Brass.
I was about to say axe. It says
sass.
It
is not an inappropriate tumbler. Is that what it is? Tumbler? Insulated,
yeah.
Tall. We call it a tumbler.
It's not really a tumbler. Maybe it's a tumbler. Yeah, I guess she calls them a tumbler.
I think that's called a tumbler.
20 ounce.
It's just a cow.
It's a sassy cow. It's a sassy cow.
There's no inappropriate language on that tumbler.
But I realized that was showing, and I'm like,
anyways, I feel like we need to throw out that, like, Laura, to keep me from rambling. I think having two D&D players both talking about nerdy stuff, we're gonna throw that whole these are gonna be long, a little bit longer than the usual retro reviews. So if you are a longtime viewer of the show, just want to let everybody know, because me and Laura had the baby Sylvie is here. It's made it so both of us being on camera is a bit of we can't do that right now. Tanya has volunteered to be the co-host for Retro Reviews, and we are going through the Dragon magazines in my collection right now, with Dragon number 307 this week. And Tanya, you got some questions for me?
yes, I do. So, what is in the magazine?
What is in the magazine? In the magazine is articles about rules, gaming tips and advice for both players and DMs, and some additional fluff. Just a valuable tool for any player of old school Dungeons and Dragons. This era of Dragon magazine was during 3.0, when they're about to switch over to 3.5. And each one of these starts off with an art. Well, up until Gygax passed away, the first article in all of these issues was Gygax's Up on a Soapbox, where he'd tell a one-page story about some adventure in his D&D days, in the early days of D&D, and try to give a little inspiration in that story.
So where'd you get this issue?
So this issue is part of my subscription to Dragon Magazine. I subscribed to it when I was in college playing D&D every week with my group up there. I was the guy who was like, all right, I'll get the subscription to Dragon Magazine and pick up these source books if you can all buy the other source books, because there was books coming out every month. There was a new D&D book coming out. So yeah.
Can you give us a quick synopsis of the articles inside?
All right. So, like I was saying earlier, Gygax's column is telling a story about how a DM came prepared to handle a party of 2 powerful wizards with a trap tailored to their tactics. The story is to show off how a DM can prep and make an encounter harder, and point out that DM prep and knowing what your party, their tactics that they normally rely on, how to use that against them to make them think outside the box and become more creative players is always good. The next article is the House Rules column, which basically every month they give some variant rules that weren't fully play tested, but sounded like a really good idea. They just kind of like, you can use this if you want. It's not official like the rest of the magazine. It's just like a little like, little extra flavor for your games at home. And it's alternative reaction modifiers to show cultural bias and how to balance it out. So basically, it's for when there's your racial tensions in your D&D game where the orcs and the dwarves do not get along. Like, just because somebody's got a really good bluff or they got a really good intimidate or they got a good sense motive, there's that prejudice in the back of their head that's kind of like giving them some negatives to it. So they're like a little socially awkward, or there's the whole thing of like, these orcs are known for being bloodthirsty murderers. Let's give them a +2 to their intimidate because they're scary. Everybody's afraid of them. Kind of funny that it ties into that racial bias that we were talking about a bit before we started diving into this episode. Probably something that would not be published in modern day D&D. They don't really want to tackle this subject. So, moving on. The next article is the Guild Secret column. Every month they would try to do a different like organization in the game world that you could either be a part of or fight against. This month, it's the Silver Strike Guild. It's a guild which focuses on the liberation of winged creatures. It was founded by a half-air elemental who befriended a Pegasus that was in captivity, being forced into military service. And basically, the air elemental freed the Pegasus, and then they went around like freeing like other Pegasus and Griffins and stuff like that, and just became like this wing magical creature liberation front. And actually like know how, like, because they're all freed, they're like, yeah, we'll be your mount, but you got to treat us right. And because you're treating us right, we'll do like aerial, like you will teach you how to do better aerial combat and stuff like that. So it's like the guilds thing. The Bestiary column, which is a monthly column of new monsters. This month focuses on monsters in the alley. Each of these 4 creatures are perfect for urban encounters in dark alleys or market bazaars. There's the Dweemivore. It's a telekinetic small dragon that can use its breath weapon to either push foes back or to like hoover up small like trinkets and magical items. There's the Splinter Waif. It's a fae that likes to hide in piles of wood because it looks like a bundle of sticks. There's the Trap Haunt. That is the ghost of a rogue that was killed by a trap. So basically, it's a ghost of a rogue that's haunting the spiked pit trap or some other deadly way that they're like, I no, somebody needs to come and defeat this trap so I can move on because I'm like completely fixated that this is what killed me. And then there is the Willora. It's a shape-shifting skunk that can steal your memories and your form, but it can only take your form at night. During the day, it looks like a skunk.
Okay.
Next article is the Risen Dead. It's 4 new undead templates. Bunch of these end up making it into monster manuals 3 through 5 for 3.5 edition D&D. They're like, these were good. We'll reprint them. It's the B-Doc. It's a hairless, gray-skinned, hairless undead that has a gaze attack that can kill you. And if that kills you, you come back as one of these things. Like all your hair falls out, your skin turns gray, and you have like the vampire's aversion to sunlight because it burns us precious. You have the ghoulish creature template, which is something that can be basically any creature starts becoming more of a ghoul. Think like Gollum from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Then there's the Scion of Crust. Basically, they're brainworms that go into the body and then puppeteer your undead corpse.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the ghastly creature, basically, it's the more powerful and more smelly version of the ghastly creature. So not only do you start turning undead, you start stinking to high heaven as your skin starts rotting and falling off. Next article is the Heroes of Corman. It's 5 prestige classes used in the Forgotten Realms campaign setting. The Battle Priest, which is a more medical-focused cleric. The Council Mage, which is able to aid others with spellcasting. The Noble Adventurer, basically fighter with better social skills because they get like diplomacy and bluff and intimidate and sense motive and all that cool stuff because they're like, I'm part of the noble court. There's the Moon Drover, which are druids which tend to deadly magical beast. And then there's the Royal Scout, which are basically rangers who transport messages. And all of these are prestige classes. I know you played 5th edition, but I don't think you played 3rd.
No.
So once you got to the certain point in 3rd edition with your character, when you had the proper attack bonus or proper skills, like skill proficiency level or certain feats or abilities, and you met all the prerequisites for it, you could take a prestige class, which let you focus on being able to do certain things better or unlocking new strange abilities or even transforming you into a more interesting creature. I had one of my characters in 3rd edition start off as a human and ended up transforming through prestige classes, racial prestige classes. He ended up becoming a full-blooded dragon by the end of the campaign. Granted, we went to I think it was level 32, 36 at that point. We got into epic levels. One of the benefits of playing D&D every single week and sticking with the same story for 2.5 years, you get up there in levels. Next article is the Haunted Bridge. So they put these 2-page spread articles where it's a map across the 2 pages and then a bunch of details about the map. This one is for a haunted bridge. It gives you the diagram, hiding spots where hidden treasures would be, traps and stuff like that. Here's a little mini, not even a fully fleshed out dungeon. It's just here's an idea. Here's what it looks like. Here's the story notes. Go have fun with it. Just a little something to get the creative DM juices flowing. Next article in the magazine is part of the 3.5 update, where they're talking about all the changes that are happening between 3rd edition and 3.5 edition, where they were going through, fixing a bunch of rules, making things more clear, balance issues, just kind of updating like they do with the 1 D&D nowadays. We just had the Player's Handbook 2020, the Player's Handbook Monster Manual and DMG 2024 editions came out, which basically look at 5th edition and go, okay, this stuff needs to be fixed, adjusted, reworded, So you can just be like, dive in, pick up this, and you're playing a much more smooth, balanced version of D&D. The update in this magazine was talking about how some of the spells that a lot of people use all the time were getting changed, such as harm, hold, haste, and polymorph. It was like the concentration had to be fixed on polymorph because it wouldn't be like you polymorph somebody and it would stay forever. Haste, because they had changed how actions work. Instead of it being like you get an extra attack and bonus to speed and stuff like that, it was like they explained how with their new action system that was going to work. Next article after that is Silicon Sorcery. This is a monthly column where they would look at different video games and figure out how to create some new rules, monsters, or magical items, or how to import a little bit of the flavor of that game into D&D. This time they were looking at the game Shadowbane with 2 human subraces. The Shades, which were death touch humans able to see and touch ethereal beings. And the Elfborn, which are half elves born to madness that use mystical tattoos to keep them from going insane. Basically some ways to bring in the flavor of that game with magic driving mortals insane and the barriers between death and life being kind of blurred. Because in regular D&D, you had to be ethereal to deal with ethereal things. And it was kind of nice to have something that's like, nope, I can deal with ethereal right off the bat. We don't have to go find special magical gear or use magical spells. No, we can have ethereal stuff be that's what you do. You deal with the ghost and the misty type things, and we'll just help you out here. The next article is a selection of prestige classes for Cultist of Good Monsters. Basically allows people, if the player reveres, unicorns or Coati or Ents or other good monsters that are big, powerful sources of magical energy, they can end up actually starting to take on aspects of that race and starting to tap into the magic abilities that they have. So it's
it's like the bard with the aboleth in the box in his backpack.
Yep. Just start slowly transforming the more they're encountering and dealing with that. Yeah.
But the bard himself has not done anything evil.
Yeah, which is turning the aboleth good. So the aboleth should give him strength.
But now he has 3 skeletons.
And he also has 3 skeletons in his crew now. So, yeah.
All right. The next article in the magazine is actually for game fans of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series. There's a mini Westeros source book for playing Game of Thrones style Dungeons and Dragons, which when I first watched Game of Thrones, I'm like, this is I'm watching a D&D game. It's plot, action sequence, everybody's going to die, and then they're at the brothel. And then we have plot. So, it's the mini source book to be able to run a Game of Thrones style D&D game. You get the Night's Watch, the Rangers prestige class, so you can actually become a ranger that fights the White Walkers, getting some undead fighting ability. You get the stats for White Walkers. You get stats for Melisandre, the Red Priest, Tyrion Lannister, the Hound, Stannis Baratheon, Daenerys, and a new magic system, because Game of Thrones isn't high magic type world where you have create food and water and lightning bolts and stuff like that. So it's like designed to show you how to tone down the magic to make it be more like, yeah, there's ice zombies and dragons and some fire and blood magic, but there's not a lot of the other stuff.
Okay.
Next section of the magazine is the Wizard Workshop. It's 3 articles designed to help DMs, players become better. Like 2 of them are designed to help the DMs and players improve their skills. The other one is just an FAQ column that people, because back there in the early 2000s, there was 2 ways to really get there's 3 ways you could get an answer from Wizards of the Coast, from the game designers, to get like, hey, I got a question about the game. How does this work? The one way you could do is you could write into the magazine and ask a question and hope that they would respond. The second way was you could email Wizards of the Coast and wait for them to respond. Or the third way was what my D&D group in college would do, is we call the 800 number. And we got to the point where they would actually, we had like one of my friends called that number so much, he was on like a first name basis where he'd just be like, hey, it's Tommy, is so-and-so there? Or can you put him on for me? He just like almost like, I think he had like the dude's like direct number, like he could call in. It's like, if you know your person's extension number, call the, yeah. But for everyone else who didn't want to be that guy calling the 800 number like 5 times a day, you wrote into Dragon Magazine and got your questions answered in Sage Advice.
Okay.
But first, we're going to talk about Monster PCs. That was big thing about 3.5 was actually being able to open up the game instead of like you're just playing human, dwarf, elf, half orc, halfling, gnome, the 6 and probably like the 6 or 7 core players handbook races. All the other humanoid and like not really powerful races in monstrous races all had what was called level adjustment, where you could play at, if it had like a level adjustment 1 or 0, you could either, if you're starting at 2nd level, you could be like, I'll take 1 level of this class and I can play this race, or I can just start at level 1 and I can play this type of monster and rate from the start at level 1. So we're just talking about like the aspects of like, how does that work? Like, things you need to look at is like power gaming and balancing, because sometimes when you got somebody who's like, I'm playing as a monster, I've got damage reduction, or I've got breath weapon, or I've got extra spells, or if I've got a lot of strength and then I take barbarian, I've got even more strength. So they're just like talking about how like checks and balances to try to keep it in order. Remember other players' expectations. Like, you don't want to have other else is like, okay, we're coming in here and we're all playing like these races, but Steve over here is playing this, and we're completely outclassed in combat because he gets to do all the cool combat stuff. What are we doing? Which is part of how I had a character go from being a regular human to being a full-blooded gold dragon, because a bunch of the other characters in the party were all like, had a little bit of monster in them. And I was like, I'm over here doing my thing, and my character sucks. Like, I actually killed the character off. We actually killed my character off so I could play a half dragon that was evil and obese. He was like 6 foot by 6 foot by 6 foot. Because we had the Book of Vile Darkness, and I'm just like playing, because everyone else was kind of like neutral, leaning towards evil. But then my character showed up and was really evil. And they're like, no. I'm like, well, if I looked at the DM and said, okay, I will go back to playing raw if you let me progress towards being a half dragon with him, and we can write into the story. I'm cool with everyone killing off my. I'm cool with like my character for like the next game session being the new villain that they got to take care of, as long as you let me basically grab a few of this character's gear and let me become a half dragon. So he's like, all right, we're working on it. So we end up killing my evil fat dragon, and then they had like the story point. One of the other players was like the one to actually bring my. So there's like 2 game sessions where it was like I was just like hanging out. Like one game session where they killed my evil dragon, where I was like just hanging out for the rest of the game session. They're like, make a new character. I'm like, I don't know. Then the next game session, I showed up and they're like, did you get a new character yet? I'm like, still trying to figure out what I want to do. And one of the other characters is like, one of the other players is like, dude, I miss your, like, why can't we just bring back your old character? I'm like, why can't you? So he's like, I got an idea. So he did like a prayer over my character's grave. And was like, dude, I missed you. You're my best friend. I wish you wouldn't have gone. He had like some sort of like soul gem type thing that ended up like actually being able to put me back in my body, got me back up. So I basically was just sitting around for like one gaming session doing nothing, just helping out the DM for that game. But it was fun like that. It was like that transformation. But yeah, if everybody's bringing monstrous characters and got one person bringing a human, it feels really like
lopsided.
It is. It's a lot of like, I'm just going to sit back here and watch you guys do all the cool stuff. And I'm not going to get to do anything because by the time that it's my turn to do something, I'm like, D8 plus 2. Meanwhile, they're all like, bucket of dice. I'm like, yep.
Yeah. It's like my my young paladin, 17-year-old paladin. Couldn't do shit. I'm sorry.
It's okay. This is adult programming.
Could heal though. She could heal.
Oh yeah.
She couldn't do much of anything else.
Sometimes all you need is the paladin that can heal and take damage and soak up damage.
Yep.
The next article was in that Wizard Workshop section is power plays. So it's moves and spell combos, which is something that mine and Josh's old 2nd edition group is like known for, of like, how can we abuse this spell with everyday common gear you can find in your adventuring bag? So it's like, you got the burning hand spell. I've got a flask of oil. I'll just take my action, cover them in oil, and you'll light them on fire. Sounds good? Okay. The fly spell on a paladin's mount basically allows you to basically go like all the way up and then like add like the charge damage of going all the way down without having to actually go too far away. And you get like flyby attacks. And putting a light spell on an arrow and then shooting that with a bow and arrow to basically make like flares to light up, just shooting into the walls and the ceiling to light up the dungeon. Or even using it as like a tracer round to do like a far shot to be like, okay, I'm just going to put this out there as far as I can go. All right, what did we see in the path of the arrow that was lighting up? So yeah, just the really cool like shenanigans that can happen. Like the whole when Josh was DMing the last time we were on the pirate ship, and he's like, I took away your holy symbol, and I'm like holding the jail cell, paladin of the god of jailers, just being like, I'm holding a jail cell. I'm holding my own prison bars. That's my holy symbol. Just
yeah.
That was a great game. But that kind of stuff, like, it's not all about like what's your class abilities, what's your spells. Like, no, let's figure out like what happens if we add this with this and just have fun with it. Always been one of my favorite things about D&D. Last, the sage advice. The FAQs was basically the takeaways that I got from that was, always if somebody's got completely dumpster fire stats, don't make them play a character who has got like their highest score is a 10 and everything else is like 6, 7, 8, 9. Heroes need
negative 4s.
Of the
negatives.
6, 7s, and 8s and 9s all give you a negative. Like those are all negatives. Like -1, -2. You know, you got to have a 10 or 11 to get a positive modifier in this game. You know,
That was my 17-year-old paladin.
Why I have like ever since I got the stat die, and this is how I like to roll character stats up, because I feel that characters are supposed to be heroes. Okay, even if you're a level 1 adventurer, you are not a simple farmhand. You are, even if your background says you are a farmhand, you are a farmhand of the destiny, the gods, whoever is in charge of everything has reached down and gone, poke you.
And your pitchfork has turned into your magic trident.
Well, no, it's not even your pitchfork's turned into your magic trident. It's like think about it like this. Like if, and this is like, I can never pronounce the idea of theology this is, but it's like based off of the multiverse, okay, that if there's an infinite number of universes out there, okay, that means somewhere's out there, there is a writer who is writing your life story. And I have an idea for making this be like a cleric, like religion in D&D, that there are like people in the game world who have this idea of like, we don't worship the gods, we worship the players. And they have this crazy theory, much like the users from Tron, where it's like, no, the gods, what they do is they act out, they embody, they enter our bodies, ride along with us on our adventures for joy and fun. And every once in a while, they'll find some random person to be like, you are not an NPC, you are a PC. So your stats are going to be good. So my theory is when you're rolling up character stats, you take 1d6, add 13 to it, and roll. And if you want to do just go straight top to bottom, that's good, because then you're like, I have no idea what my character is going to be, but none of your stats are going to be below a 14. No, it's 1d6 plus 12. So none of your stats are going to be below a 13 to 18 is what you're rolling. And that's the idea I have behind PCs. Like they're not NPCs. They are they're smarter, they're tougher, they're stronger, they're better looking. They have more common sense. They're going to have a 13 is going to be their lowest stat in any of these traits, because they're going to go off and become the next heroes of legend. You know, this is a player character. This is not like just, if you want to play, just play Jim from down the street who's just like, I hate picking these potatoes. I'm going to grab my pitchfork and just go start killing goblins.
Yeah.
And you want to have low stats, then go have low stats. But if you're going to go and be like, no, we're going to go on some epic quests and adventures here and play like, you know, Tomb of Horrors or some of the old classic murder dungeons, you want to have like 13 being your lowest stat number. So, and again, getting back on topic, the other piece of information that I had from Sage Advice, from the Sage Advice column, they talked about the difference between bardic knowledge, the skill, and like specific knowledge skills. Well, bardic knowledge, the ability, the class ability, versus like having knowledge arcane as a class skill. It's like the knowledge skills is like you took some time, you studied, you read a bunch of books on the subject, or you've grown up in a household that's like all this stuff. Like you have like expertise training. Like Bardic knowledge is just the whole thing of like, I heard this one time. I think it's true. Is it? It's like random trivia versus specific training. And
Yeah.
I think like when you let people roll on Bardic knowledge is a great skill to have whenever you need somebody who has a lot of like knowledge skills in a game. But also it's the whole thing of like, you got to remember, it's not like they don't actually know the whole truth. They got bits and pieces of it. So it can be kind of like, all right, what do you think you know? Roll it. Okay. Somehow that actually works out in the lore, and you just can completely just wing it. Like they're making up something completely random with the Bardic knowledge. And it's like, that does work in some very fringe case scenarios. You're technically right. Whereas if somebody rolls the knowledge skill, they're the whole like, actually, that was a specific case happened on this day, and they had to have this, and this for a magical item with it. It's a fringe case, and hardly ever comes up. This is the actual proper information. So I thought that was just cool. It's like,
Yeah.
more of the whole just mess with ideas. All right. So for me personally, the stuff that I thought actually, the stuff we talked about so far, what was some of the cool stuff that stood out to you?
Sorry, there's sound coming off somewhere. What stood out to me was the fact they expanded on monsters, they explained new monsters, they gave opportunities for it. There's opportunities to build good monsters as well.
Oh, like the whole becoming monsters?
Becoming monsters, that whole concept. That is something that would play well and evolve more characters, being able to be more than the basic 6 or 7 characters to expand beyond. Knowing how to utilize those characters best to their abilities is something I think more players should be aware of all ages. So
yeah, it would be cool to actually have like a campaign at some point where everybody's got a little monster ancestry, and kind of that whole thing of like, you have been chosen to be the next heroes of legend. It's this whole thing of like, you get a game going and it has to have everybody kind of like let the DM know is like, what's your favorite cool monster? Is everybody just slides it into the DM as a little background note thing. Or if you've got like a sorcerer that has like a bloodline ancestry, like what bloodline ancestry is that? Every once in a while, instead of letting them level up in a level of the character, you can let them level up in the prestige class of that monstrous race. And it's like, okay, so yeah, okay, everybody's got enough experience points to go up a level. You, and you, okay, you go up in your class levels. You don't go up a class level. You get this roll the hit dice, you get this many hit dice, and a pair of wings burst out of your back. And you now can fly at this speed. And it's like everybody starts just becoming a bit more monstrous when they like do something cool story wise to actually gain that level.
or if they kill
That would
enough
be a fun campaign to run.
If they kill enough of those style monsters, they become start to absorb
Or
their abilities.
be kind of cool, like especially like somebody's like becoming a dragon. It's more of the whole thing of like, if you actually took the damage, like if you're like say you're one of the dragons that breathes ice, but instead you're in a fight, but somebody hit you with a fire spell, and it's like, okay, you've reached enough points to level up, but because you reach that experience plateau to level up, but fires like hit you, your body, instead of it letting you advance in your class, your body's kicking in and being like, no, we need to get some scales going on here, get some fire resistance happening here. or you have a barbarian character who's like got like some sort of weird like, well, even like a bear, like a bugbear or some other like aggressive race, and it's like you're raging at the point where you get your experience points. Okay, that anger and strength and power has started to mutate you into, has started to unlock your ancestry. Like having some cool rules in place like that, where it's like you just can't be like, well, I hit my level, I'm just going to take a level of this. It's like, no, your ancestry. It's like you can't just power through it, man. You got to have like story moments where you're, I'm going to stop advancing as a fighter for right now and just take like my next 4 levels all in my monstrous transformation class. It's like, no, you're going to get those during key story moments.
Quick question. Is my screen frozen?
I think it is.
I am waving my arms.
All right. I think that's a cue for us to wrap up this episode. Yeah. I know you can't wave goodbye, but you can say it.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you all next week.
And if you're enjoying the newer, longer content, make sure to hit the like button, share, all that cool stuff. Lets YouTube know we're doing a good job. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.
Hey everybody, thanks for staying till the end of the episode. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Follow us on Facebook at Board Barista Productions. And if you want to support us, Patreon link at the bottom.